Welcome to the Blessors of Israel Podcast. I'm Matthew Dodd, Executive Director of Blessors of Israel, greeting you from Thessalonica, Greece. Right behind me there, you see the second largest city in Greece. It's the co-capital with Athens. Now, in the Bible, in Acts chapter 17, we're told that the Apostle Paul, during his second missionary journey, he visited Thessalonica, and there he proclaimed the good news of Jesus Christ. He was in the synagogue for 3 Sabbaths, and there he was proving from the Old Testament scriptures and also gave many proofs of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. He showed them that the Messiah must suffer, die, be buried, and resurrected from the dead. Well, as a result of those coming to faith in Jesus Christ, some of the Jews began to persecute the Apostle Paul. So he left Thessalonica and he went to a town called Berea. Berea, in Acts chapter 17, verse 10, we're told he visited there. Now today it's called Veria. In fact, I visited Berea today. It's a beautiful town, and there you'll see tributes to the Apostle Paul. You'll see a statue of the Apostle Paul there. You'll also see some beautiful paintings of Paul receiving this vision from the man from Macedonia saying, "Please come and visit us here. Teach us the good news of Jesus Christ." And you'll also see a picture of Paul teaching the Bereans. Now, what stands out about the Bereans is this, that we're told they were more noble-minded than the Thessalonians because they eagerly received Paul's teaching, and they were daily examining the scriptures to see if what Paul said was true. What was Paul talking about? Well, likely Paul was systematically taking them through the Old Testament scriptures and showing from the Old Testament that the Messiah must suffer, die, be buried, and resurrected from the dead. Places like Isaiah 53, how our Messiah would be crushed for our iniquities, pierced for our transgressions, and yet be raised from the dead. And then he also gave other proofs that Jesus is the Messiah. For instance, we're told in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 that Jesus appeared to over 500 at one time after he was resurrected from the dead. 500 eyewitnesses to the resurrection of Jesus Christ. But I think one of the most important eyewitnesses is the Apostle Paul himself. You see, before he became the Apostle Paul, he was Saul of Tarsus. And we're told also in the book of Acts that he was a chief persecutor of the church. And he was on his way to Damascus, and on that Damascus road, it was our resurrected Savior, Jesus Christ, who confronted Saul of Tarsus, saying, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" And there, Saul's life was transformed. He came to saving faith in Jesus Christ once he realized Jesus is alive. And I believe for those who ever reject the resurrection of Jesus Christ, not only can you take them to 1 Corinthians 15 and say, hey, 500 eyewitnesses at one time. How many witnesses do you need to prove a point in a courtroom? 2? Jesus had 500 eyewitnesses to the resurrection at one time. But I think one of the key eyewitnesses to the resurrection of Jesus Christ is the Apostle Paul himself. How do you explain a former persecutor of the church becoming the chief proclaimer of the gospel of Jesus Christ, that he is alive? I use that all the time when I'm dealing with people who reject the resurrection of Jesus Christ. I'll ask them, please explain to me how a persecutor becomes a proclaimer of the gospel of Jesus Christ. It stumps them every single time. So it's great to be here. It's a great reminder of how God used people like the Apostle Paul to bring many to saving faith in Jesus Christ. It transformed Thessalonica, it transformed Berea, and God is still on the move and transforming lives right now. And we need God to move like never before. We need to have God move in the lives of those in the United States, in Israel, Israel's enemies, because only the gospel of Jesus Christ will transform lives. And speaking of Israel, I want to give you a brief update. For we are told that recently the United States did a very strong attack against the Houthis in Yemen. They're a proxy of Iran, the largest state sponsor of terrorism. 100 different targets were struck by the United States, and 58 terrorists, Houthi leaders, were killed in those strikes. And so the United States is making it very clear, do not strike Israel, and those shipping lanes, commerce lanes, need to be open and free from the Houthis attacking the United States and the different ships that go through there. Very fascinating. Now, on another note, speaking of Hamas and what's taking place in the Gaza Strip, news is making it very clear that the Palestinians in Gaza are not pleased with what Hamas is doing. And there are protests that are rising up. And so it appears that Hamas wants a ceasefire so they can squash the protests. They want a ceasefire. They say, hey, we'll give you some of the hostages that we're holding. We want a ceasefire so they can take control of that region again and suppress those who are beginning to rise up and say, enough is enough. We do not want Hamas and their leadership over us any longer. So we need to be in prayer for Israel and her people. We need to be in prayer for Israel's enemies as well, because again, only the power of the resurrection, only the good news of Jesus Christ can transform lives. Now, if you're joining us for the very first time on this podcast, I want to encourage you to visit our website. You can do so by going to www.blessors.org. That's Blessors with an ORS.org. What you'll discover there is our vision and our mission statement as a new ministry. I want you to be informed as to why we do what we do in equipping the church to help them understand the importance of supporting Israel in the latter days. Make sure, by the way, you also visit our newsroom. There you'll find curated news concerning Israel and the Middle East so that you can be informed as to how to pray for Israel. In addition, you'll discover original articles with a biblical perspective. By the way, if you haven't done so already, make sure you like this podcast and subscribe to the channel, whatever channel you're watching, and make sure you share this with others. We're seeing that YouTube in particular is suppressing our videos, limiting our reach, and we need to break through this. And I think the best way to do so is by liking the podcast, subscribing to the channel, tell your neighbors, tell your friends, tell your church friends as well about Blessors of Israel and this important new ministry. We also encourage your prayers, and we appreciate your financial support as we build this new and important ministry. Remember, those who bless Israel will be blessed. Shalom, shalom.